I'm excited to announce a new solution from H2K Labs, Revved Up. Revved Up is an invitation-only gathering and a brain trust for CEOs and their revenue-critical C-suite teams leading multi-sided businesses such as media, events, data and insights, marketplaces, and professional networks. So if you're a CEO or a C-suite leader interested in improving how your business is extracting maximum financial return from your most valuable asset data, then Revved Up is for you. Revved Up for CEOs and C-suite leaders takes place February 25th through the 27th in Sarasota, Florida. Please visit h2klabs.com/revvedup to learn more, and that's 2 V's. Welcome to the Revenue Room podcast, your go-to resource for uncovering how data powers revenue growth, profitability, and value creation across the information and marketing services industries. And this includes media and events. It's my pleasure to introduce Tina Hannagan, Executive Vice President and General Manager of Asset Intelligence at Fusable. Tina is a dynamic leader with over 20 years of experience in the data and analytics industry, where she has consistently demonstrated her ability to drive business growth through innovative, data-driven strategies. That's right up our alley. Since joining Fusable in 2022, she has been instrumental in transforming the company's product evolution and go-to-market strategy, helping to establish Fusable as a leading provider of data-driven solutions for industrial markets. Prior to her current role, Tina served as Senior Vice President of Shared Services at Dun & Bradstreet, where she built a remarkable track record of understanding customer needs, forging strong client relationships, and implementing customer-centric sales methodologies. Her diverse experience spans multiple operational disciplines, including sales, service, operations, marketing, and product development. Tina is also a speaker at Revved Up 2025, which takes place February 25th through the 27th in Sarasota, Florida. I'll share more details about Revved Up at the end of the show. Today, Tina will share valuable insights on operationalizing data transformation and reveal the tactical blueprint that has helped Fusable evolve from a traditional media business into a mission-critical data and intelligence provider. One of the biggest things that excited me about this use case is the statement from Fusable's CEO, Matt Riley, that their clients cannot do business without a subscription to Fusable's data set. I mean, that is nirvana in the world of media, events, and information. So welcome, Tina.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
You know, and your background is phenomenal. I mean, listen, I'm fascinated by so many parts of the Fusable use case and story, but in particular, the speed to which you were able and have been transforming 110-year-old culture, sales culture, into, to me, what's like a state-of-the-art a revenue organization. And I can tell you right now, for the listeners, right, they're going to be fascinated by this as well, because it's a perennial problem. So anyway, let's dive right in.
Okay.
So did I miss anything in your background?
No, I think you did a really great job. I mean, most of my career has been really embedded in data, so which is exciting. I've sat in my client's shoes for many years, and then I transitioned into revenue generating roles throughout my career. So yeah, I think that's what's really unique about where I'm at today at Fusable.
Well, I also, one of my little pet projects is showcasing female leadership that rises up either through the data channel or the revenue channel, and you actually hit both nails on the head. So this is like a double win-win. So and actually another part about your background that I think is super interesting is the operational roles you've all had, like the revenue, what I call revenue critical roles, which in the old days, it's the sales room, right? That's revenue. We don't, once out, we're done, right? Revenue critical now touches anything that touches the customer, and all those roles I read off from your bio, like we had product, customer service, data, product development, operation, all of marketing, they're all customer facing. At the end of the day, it touches the customer.
I think that's what's actually so unique. And, even in my own personal leadership journey, I really like to push my leaders and people that I work with and I mentor to check out different facets of a business, like understanding end to end. Like the customer journey just doesn't start and stop with sales. There's places before, like marketing is a huge partner of ours. Here we have business development and sales development that kind of help the sales teams get to the deals that they're closing. You've got client success post sales. We've got sales engineers, and you've got product that comes on the journey, and then finance. Finance is a huge part of this as well. So I think, having partnered with or been a part of those organizations historically really has positioned, me for some of the stuff that I've done here at Fusable.
The partnership with finance, that's a whole other, that's so important. People miss that one.
Uh,
It's not the big bad boogeyman with the Excel sheet.
no. They're actually I actually enjoy working with finance. It's one of my favorite things to do, right? You learn a lot.
Yeah, absolutely, especially if you're data driven and use a lot of metrics and KPIs.
Yeah.
All right, so here's my first question. You've led Fusable's transformation from a traditional media business to a data and intelligence provider. And it was quite the journey because it wasn't just transforming it within the existing organization. Randall Riley it was part of the journey happened there, but then there was a carve out, right? And
Yes.
entire new business was formed. What were the key inflection points in this journey that made you realize, prior to the carve out, but like that you really needed to fundamentally change the business model and separate it out? Like that was such a huge decision.
Yeah, I think there were a few pieces of it. So the business that was carved out is truly a data business. The business that we carved out from was a talent recruiting business. And so though we have like customers, what we offer those customers was very different in the marketplace. So what stood out early on to me was our clients knew us by the brands in the market. So they knew that talent business by Randall Riley Talent, and then they knew what is now Fusable as the product brands that sit under that umbrella. So whether it's Iron Solutions or EDA or one of the other, 5 or 6 brands that sit there. And so when we actually approached our clients, we would approach them by the brand with different salespeople. So early on, I went to a really large client and I pulled up a slide and said, this is at the time Randall Riley. And it had all these facets to it. And the customer sat back and there was a lot of people at the table and they said, wow, we didn't even know that you were all these things. And we take 5 of those things today. And so what really made me realize, I had to take a step back and say, okay, if the customer doesn't know who we are in the market, whether it was under the Randall Riley umbrella or it was under this new Fusable umbrella, but what that was doing is it was creating a fragmented experience, right? It was compounded also by the fact that what they were buying from us, and they were buying data assets from us, they weren't even unified. So they could have had 4 different sellers approaching them with different product hats on. At the same time, the data wasn't coming together on our side. So they had a huge lift on their side to bring that data together. And so when you actually take a step back and think about that, you're like, the customer has a significant amount of work on their side to extract the value from these data assets. And they had a lot of, I would say, manual intervention as well, which is never an optimal situation to be in a data business because you want to drive value. You want to drive it very quickly for your customers so you retain your customers. So that is when we, thought about it. Obviously there was many more people involved in the decision, but the core of this business is we're a data company and we do use our media brands and our data brands as well to fuel in the middle. There's a digital business, it's about 25% of our revenue, but at the heart of it, it is data. And so that's when we started to we carved all of our data assets out, and that's what formed Fusable. And that is where I think the instinct, like when I started to think about how do we start to monetize this differently, it was with how do we get to a point where there's a unified data layer here at Fusable, and what does that look like for our clients? And that was, we had to start talking to our clients. I talked to our salespeople all the time and was like, what questions are our clients asking us right now that we struggle to answer? Like we have the answer, but we're struggling to answer it because the answers are in multiple places. And so that's where, I take the step back and think, we're very fortunate here that we have an incredible client base. And so when we started to decide where we're going to make our investments in the future, and one of them was, unifying the data supply chain, we had many customers that were willing to go on this journey with us and actually do paid pilots with us. And we were able to take that information and use it to prove out where we'd make our investments going forward before we fully committed to this transformation that we actually are going on right now.
So you brought up a couple, as I'm furiously writing right now. So you brought up a few things in that. So one is the first point is in the old days, as I like
Mhm.
to say, your teams were going out and selling a brand. They were selling
Like,
XYZ
yeah.
brand, and I have advertising services, and do you want them? Here's the schedule, right?
Yeah.
Now they're going out, and the evolution that you saw was, I mean, obviously one that's not effective. It's not serving the customer very well, and you have so much more to offer. But then you were able to start selling across multiple brands. So that was a step, but
Mhm.
that there were still gaps. Like, great, we're selling across multiple brands, but the data is disconnected. And so, yet, while we may be getting more wallet share from these clients, we're actually adding more. We're adding more work on their side,
Mhm.
but we're also still now even missing potentially more opportunity and insights into customer need because I can't connect the dots
Yep.
with the data, right? To the point where now, and that question that you brought, it was so smart. And I'm actually working with a client on a data transformation project in their revenue room, and I'm like, I have to ask them this question, which is, what questions are your clients asking you all the time that you're struggling to answer? Like, I
Yeah.
bet you, it,
There's
like,
so many. Yeah. Yeah. There's
so
so many.
obvious.
There's so many. I mean, for us, our clients are looking for different things. They're looking to understand the market, what's going on in the market with particular assets. Are there trends that you see in the market? We have value data, valuation data. So, like, what are these pieces of equipment? What are they going for? And who is out there in the market looking to buy particular assets? Like, that's just one example. And those are sales and marketing use cases in my mind.
Yep.
So we have a customer, that came to us and said, I have a lot full of combines. What are they worth? Who might be in the market to buy them? And we have the answers to those questions, but we have them in different products. So historically, they could get to it two ways. They ask us the question, we can compile the data in flat files and send it back to them, which is a lot and kind of disjointed. Or they could license the two products and get the data from both of them and then somehow combine that data on the back end to answer that question. And so that is a real life example. And if you just think about what I said, that process is far from efficient, right? But they're very critical decisions that our clients are trying to make, because first and foremost, that inventory has a value. So if you have a lot full of combines, they want to, number one, make sure they get the maximum return on that. They want to avoid losses if they're trading equipment. And they want to keep stimulating used equipment sales and be competitive in the market. So they want to know what's happening around them in the used equipment sale type environment. They also, I think about like who's going to buy this. So they want a targeted list. They just don't want to go out there and blanket the market because most people aren't buying combines. And if they are, these combines are fitted for specific crops, right? So all of that level of detail we have within our data assets. And so that's where, it started to inform us of like, these are simple questions that this isn't a dealer market. Dealers are going to be asking all the time. How do we make this journey for our dealers easier? And that started to influence some of the stuff that we're doing and the stuff that we're building right now.
So your data insights are leading directly to a transaction, but it's because you're able to connect the dots between these different data sets
Mm-hmm.
to get to the transaction, and you're you're directly connected to the like daily financial outcomes for these companies now because you're
Yeah,
able to provide them with that data.
we are, and that's why we made some of the acquisitions we made a few years ago under our CEO Matt Riley's leadership. So we had we still have wealth of knowledge on like who is buying what, who's financing those equipment, where do they buy the equipment, when did they buy it. So we have all of that information, and then with the acquisitions we made about 3 years ago or so, that was all the valuation. So what are these equipment, like what are they worth? How are they fitted? Do they have tires? Do they have tracks? So that's all the insight that started to complement these data sets so that we don't just look at one side of the equation of like who's out there buying, what's their typical buying cycle, but also what is the value of these pieces of equipment? I think that that's a natural fit. So we're always looking at things that are complementary to our business.
So this actually, okay, so there was a point I brought up before that really kind of struck me as it was the question you asked about what questions are your clients asking you that you're struggling to answer? And that, for a traditional media or an event,
Mhm.
company, they're like, "Oh, it's going to be about my program or the ROI of what you're delivering advertising wise, right? This is so far, this is complete opposite. They're asking you questions because you're an industry leader and you have knowledge about their industry and you are so connected and deep in from a vertical standpoint. They're asking you questions about what's happening in the market that will help them, convert, right? Pipeline, help them sell, make financial transactions, do business better. And so one, I think that is a massive testament to the opportunity for vertical plays, right? You have the trusted position. But the second part to this is, not just the industry, you actually know your customers buying, your customers buying journey and needs. And so what you just described about the acquisition that Matt's making to help fill some of those information gaps because of your industry expertise. But I think the other thing you and I talked about is it's not just acquisitions, it's partnerships. So you're developing partnerships, and I think the ones I came across where you announced them was CamoAg, Arcadium, Vose. Is it Vose? VOCE.
Mm-hmm.
And you are making partnerships on top of these acquisitions to really this is a robust data ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, and partnerships are key too because we can't acquire every company. It doesn't make sense for us to do so.
right.
And so 18 months ago or so, we started thinking about like the world a little bit differently and thought, how else can we continue to grow without doing acquisitions? And partnerships is the natural thing to step into next. So we, not only from a client-facing organization, so my sales organization, my client success organization, myself, we're out there committed to understanding where our clients are putting their data, what tools they're using. And a partnership could be data as well. We could partner with a company to get data that we don't have today. We're really committed to it. So we also have a leader in our organization who is 100% focused on partnerships, right? So he's actively out there as well, looking at the same thing and saying, is there a new technology that's coming to market that our customers are using or could solve issues that our clients have today? When we look at them, I actually always take a step back and think, if I'm going after sales and marketing use cases, I've led large sales teams in my history. What do people who are leading sales organizations care about most? Well, I actually care that my team today is logging into the least amount of tools as possible. Ideally, it would be one, but most likely I'd say, 1 to 3 tools. And that's what our clients are trying to do too. So if they're using any of our products today, which they do for prospecting, for example, they'd have to log into that tool, do their prospecting, extract a file, then potentially they go load it into a CRM or wherever they're going to do their work. And it becomes multiple touch points and swivel chairs where you've got a lot of manual entry, you've got the potential of human error. And so you take that step back and you think, okay, where do we want to focus? So CamoAg, Arcadium, Vose, they're all just platforms. And they're platforms which not only our clients are using, which helps us retain that client because we're meeting them where they are, but also they have a lot of clients that aren't our clients today. And the reason they aren't our clients today is because these clients want the data where they are, which are in these platforms. So that's the thing that's very exciting for us as we think about growth potential, is that we don't have to go out there and make massive acquisitions. We need to be very thoughtful in who we partner with, and we get that feedback directly from our clients and in just truly understanding the market and who the key players are in tools like the ones that we've already decided to partner with.
So just to recap that, because that's also incredibly intelligent, as I heard you talk through it, is it's not just partnerships to expand the data sets that you're able to offer, right? Your current client base. It's partnerships to ensure you're integrated with the tools your clients are using every day, so they're not logging into multiple things. There's data integration flows, and it's seamless for your customer, which creates a very sticky environment for you to continue to not only keep the customer, but potentially, grow and see how they're using the data. But on the other side is a pipeline funnel, because if you're partnering with these tech platforms that have clients that are not yet working with you, there's a huge opportunity now to access those and sell them into your solution. So there's a very cost effective and I would say cost effective, less steps, more value driven marketing play for pipeline.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so that's something that we've really taken into consideration as well, is because when we lose clients, sometimes we lose clients and the reason is value or price, which is, kind of one and the same. But we find out that the amount of time it takes them to get the data where they need the data is actually very costly for them, and they're just not getting the value that they could, and it's way too much time. So that's been also a really interesting thing to learn, and I would also say it's informing us too. So these partnerships, we're taking specific data assets and piping them into these tools, these platforms, and so we're seeing what clients are liking about the data that they have. So as we are now building out our roadmap for the next 12 to 18 months, when we think about where we're building connectors or APIs into our own tools and platforms, so outside of the 3 that we've partnered with, that's informing that journey as well. So we know that, a trucking dealer finds value out of these 10 data elements. Well, let's make sure as we build into the next connection tool, maybe, like a Salesforce for a CRM perspective or a Dynamics, let's make sure those 10 data assets are also in that product build because we're seeing it from the partnership side. So it's a really cost-effective way for us to test, to learn, to grow the business as we are also building out feature functionalities for our next iteration of deliverables coming in 2025.
Excellent, excellent. Smart partnership strategy for all the listeners out there, because I don't think I know one client of mine that does that. It's a very something I think we should dive into a little bit more revved up, by the way. Okay, so I had a fascinating podcast with Matt Riley, your CEO, and one of the things he highlighted is that you're actually leveraging this legacy data that are coming from these legacy media assets, but you're layering on AI to cut analysis time from days to mere seconds. So there's an operational efficiency aspect here. So one, are you involved in that? And if so, can you tell us a little bit more about how this works? But the second part is are you using that kind of construct also to help empower your sellers, right? Like in the way they're going to market, all the time it takes to research and understand client needs, and the data that you're actually sitting on from product usage to help them sell better.
Yeah. So there's a lot in there. So first, the company was very fragmented, very siloed, and it wasn't just from a data perspective, it was from a sales perspective as well. So everyone wore a brand and supported a brand and sold for that brand. So whether it was EDA or for RigDig, that was how the company was structured. And so when we think about the example I just shared about, I have a lot full of combines and I want to know what they're worth, that question is answered by 2 different data products, which was also siloed. And so that informed this journey that we were going on from the data side, but it also informed us of our go-to-market and the fundamental changes that we had to make there. So revenue is always important and very critical to us. We had to be very thoughtful how we did this. And so we took a look at our client base and said, we're going to put these into tiers, and we're going to put them into strategic, enterprise, and I'll say like small mid-market. And we didn't just do that based on revenue. Revenue is obviously very critical, but we started to find customers that look like other customers to say, what is the potential for some of these customers to grow and to become like our largest customers? And so we did that through the front part of 2024, launched our new go-to-market in the back half of the year. And we did that with the help of our internal sales team, our sales leaders, right? They have a lot of knowledge and a lot of expertise where I personally didn't have that. I was very new. I was only a year or so into my career here at Fusable. And that journey has been instrumental for us because by walking in and actively listening to answer new questions that you wouldn't have wearing one product, we have seen a tremendous lift in what we've cross-sold in the last 12 months. So we continue to focus on that approach. And, now every year, so we just are starting a new year, we're looking at where do we promote customers and bring them up into our strategic enterprise and which ones are, not really growing as we thought they were. And then we kind of bring them down into this small business support model. The support model also is helping us when we think about the resources internally that are supporting these accounts. So our largest accounts that sit on the upper end of our business, they're more complex, typically license more than one product from us or have what we think the ability to license more product from us. They have a dedicated seller and post-sale support for our client success manager, a dedicated client success manager. So they're getting the white glove, I'd say, approach versus someone who's very transactional, just wants to come in to ask a quick question and pop back out and go on, which is more of our smaller customers. We had one resource sitting on them, which I'll say is more like a renewal specialist. Like, make sure you get the renewal. You're going to go after your price. You're going to go after upsell opportunities. You're going to nurture them throughout the year, and then you're going to renew them again. And with that, we're looking this year in 2025 is how do we create more self-service training opportunities for them? How do we do more tech touch points with our partners in marketing? So, did you know when new feature functionalities come out, if we look at their usage and we find patterns of how they're not using the tool, maybe we can push stuff to them versus actually having, human contact on every interaction. So that's the future that we're building on the lower end. But all these customers are important, right? If I lose 100 small customers, it's just like losing one large customer. So we were very thoughtful in how we move the clients and how we move the team members, most importantly. But all of that kind of plays into, our walls are down. We're not siloed from a data perspective anymore, so we really can't sell siloed anymore as well.
So I had to stop myself from writing so much because there's so much here to unpack. So the first one is the lookalike enterprise customer segment approach, which I personally, again, the way you described it, it's an actual use case, but it's something I talk about all the time because I'm like, you have your outliers, or they are perceived outliers to a CEO. Like, well, you only have a couple clients who are spending across all of these different categories. They're outliers, right? They're not actually. You have to find companies that look like them and get more of them to do it because it's not a possibility to me statistically that you have enterprise clients who are outliers buying like that. It's that you're not, your sales organization isn't structured to make the outlier an actual everyday occurrence, which leads to you not only created the lookalike enterprise customer segment, you actually put in place the sales mechanism and strategy and execution plan to activate it. It wasn't just like, okay, guys, here's our lookalike, now go. No, you know that group needs a special support and sales system to actually activate the revenue and the customer value. But you also didn't lose sight of the importance of your mid and long tail. And each of those are different customer segments and require different things. So I've also talked to clients like, we're going to build a platform, a self-serve, buy everything on the platform for all of our customers. Well, actually, only a certain segment of your customers are going to find a lot of value out of that and actually make it worthwhile. You're going to need something else from the middle, and you've recognized that. So, did you put metrics in place like to track the financial impact of these three components that you did in this rollout, this new sales rollout?
Yeah, so we're on that journey right now, looking at productivity of our client-facing teams. We're really trying to understand usage impact. So we do have the ability. We have really strong tools right now that in our products we can see when who's logging in, the duration of the time that they're logged in, where do they spend their time when they're in the product, where do they not spend their time when they're in the product. And so for us, just having benchmarks to look at that, to say, okay, we have a highly engaged upper end of our business. We've got a lot of resources on top of it. Are we seeing different changes in usage? So that's something that we're looking at right now. And then we want to be very mindful, as I shared in the lower end, I don't want to lose any engagement in our product, right? Because then we're going to have another challenge there. So that is all we have it built out. We're just looking at it now, monitoring it, something that we're actively, our client success leadership looks at it on a daily basis, like how are we doing? And that actually informs like where we're getting to through using tools of our own is when I log in the morning, I'm a client success manager, who should I be calling? So how do we prioritize who we call? And so when I look at the two key metrics for us right now, we're looking at usage of our products and then our retention, right? So we got to make sure we keep these customers. Every customer you lose, that's like long-term revenue out the door. Acquiring a customer is more costly than keeping a customer. And so we're very sensitive to this as we are on this journey. The other thing too is like, and you shared it early on in our discussion is, kind of being scared of change, right? The thing is, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, that's, the definition of insanity. But I also don't believe in coming in and doing a mass overhaul of change on day one, because if you do that, you don't know what worked and what didn't work. So my personal style is to be, very methodical and thoughtful, and have a phased approach at making change. I could have came in on the first day at Fusable and said, I'm going to overhaul the entire sales organization. I have a playbook. It's worked elsewhere. It's going to work here. Well, that probably would have failed miserably. And so just understanding, how do we interact with clients? What does that look like? When we are driving value, what does that look like? And then we work together. Like I worked with the sales organization hand in hand to continue to enhance that and make that great. So by the time I got to something like changing compensation plans, I knew that the first two were working well and I was driving value. I didn't go to something that was, probably, I would say, more disruptive right in the beginning. And so I think that, as leaders, we have to continue to think about that it might take a little bit more time and there might be extra steps, but at least that if you're on this journey and you make like 3 changes and you know which one didn't work, you can pivot real fast, go back, and then try something different. And so that, I think, has really helped us as a company to scale at the pace at which we've been doing things. Is that, even that's Matt's approach. Like he does pillars at a time. Like, worked on the sales organization, then client success organization. We have a chief data officer that just started. So we really keep that approach from a leadership team.
Okay, again, I'm sitting here like, okay, stop writing, because one, the biggest piece of advice for any listener right now, and I've seen many a revenue leader get fired within 12 months for doing exactly what you said not to do, which is holistic change at the same time. I'm coming in, I'm changing the sales org, and oh, by the way, we're going to change the comp plan. Right. So but it's not even the disruption of the holistic change coming in too fast, is the other part you said, which is you don't know what's going to work, or what's working, what's not. And the other part you mentioned, which I thought was really, and I'd love to dive into this a little more, is the use of what I call leading indicators, the predictive indicators, the product usage, I think was one. You mentioned another, which I failed to
Retention. It's like retention.
Yeah, right. Which are retention is such a huge metric for health, right? You might have closed a lot of new business, but if you're not keeping them, something's wrong with the product. And there's also something wrong if you're not growing them. But there's also something wrong where they may not be using your product, and that's such an early one. And that's a difficult one to teach, and this is going to lead to my next question. The change you're talking about for the revenue organization has hit literally every single facet of that organization. How they're organized, what they're selling, how they're selling, how they're being measured, the data they're being given to sell, learning even how to use that. Understanding what I call red flag events when, in the product usage side, for it is a tremendous transformation, not just Fusable itself, but the actual sales team, because you brought that sales team over when you did the carve out.
Yeah. Yep. The whole sales team. And so that I think is an important thing to note. And it's something that I actually, I love about our company. Coming from Dun & Bradstreet, I was there over 15 years. I love tenured employees. The industry, your clients, right? You're really well respected internally, externally. And there is a balance, right? There's a balance because you're always looking at external, talent, maybe to fill new things, right? Up and coming things that you hadn't thought about in your business. But our sales team, one of the things early on is, I came in and I've been a seller. I've been in their roles before. So I rolled my sleeves up. I love nothing more than to talk about deal structure, to negotiate deals, to ideate on new things that we can actually create. And so I do believe that I was able to gain the trust of the organization, relatively quickly, to understand when they had pains, internally, what was causing those pains. When they were listening to clients, and the feedback, what were we doing? What action were we taking internally to make that experience better for them? And so I think that really does help, in the journey, and something that I'm really passionate about. I sat, many years ago, I started my career in data. So I actually have done the jobs that our clients are doing, right? So I understand the pain points that they go through. When I went into my first sales role, I thought about it and I'm like, oh, I don't really identify as a seller, right? And it was like, no, you're going to actually be a solutions consultant. So I actually had a quota, I carried the bag, and it's how I made money, quite honestly. So I'm like, I have to actually sell, because if I don't, I'm not going to make money. And so I think by early on in my career, never truly identifying as like I'm something that could sell anything. I'm consulting with my clients to drive their business forward. That's what I'm building here at Fusable, right? Like, of course, if we're successful, they're going to make a ton of money doing that. But to not just sell, to your point earlier, they can sell it today, but if they don't drive the value and they don't drive the adoption, they're not going to renew. And so then we're going to have holes that we're going to have to fill each year. And so we need sustainable revenue. And that's like a key part of it. And I always say this from a data company and a media company, like we could sell this stuff by the pound, right? All day long. But if we don't drive that adoption early on and use the tools that we have to do so, and the people that we had, we're going to be no better off. And so let's just make our lives easier. And so that's why I'm really, one of the things I'm passionate about is we invest in tools to help to make our jobs easier. So we have those things here. And the other thing, which Matt is very passionate about, which I respect, is leadership development. And leadership development does not mean that you have to be a people leader. You're going to lead us through critical situations or initiatives, right? So I could be an individual, a seller, but I'm leading us through a renewal, right? So we let all levels go through leadership development. We do a cohort each year, and it's something that he protects in the budget every year. And many companies don't do that. And I know it might sound like a little silly, but it was one of the things that actually attracted me to Fusable was this fact that we invest in our people heavily. And so I share that because when we think about the tenure and the people that are here, we make investments in them every day. And we have a balance. We're very mindful about this balance of we want everyone to come along on the journey. And we want to find the talent that's here and elevate them into roles where they're going to, grow personally, professionally, but also help us grow. And then there's going to be times where like we just need to go to the outside market to find something that we just don't have. And so that's been a delicate balance for us, but one I think, we've done fairly well over the last, 2 years that I've been here.
So again, a lot to unpack on that one. I mean, one is the part like lead through the renewal, like to build leadership skills. It's not about managing. It's managing people. It's helping lead through this successful process, right? If there's payback in spades there because just even when you said lead through the renewal, I'm putting myself back as like the VP of sales. And I'm like, oh my God, I wish I had all my sales team members know how to lead us through a renewal versus waiting for them to be led through the renewal, right? So again, there's a lot of math we could do about, that if you and I had the spreadsheet and be like, wow, that could pay back a lot. But I think that is so smart and a very unique way to look at leadership development. And you could replicate that on all different type of functions, lead through a customer crisis, lead through a churn versus a renewal, because by the way, you need to successfully churn out of an account sometimes, or most of the time, 100% of the time, because they could be somewhere else and come back. But the other part that you brought up in this is the respect you had for the existing talent that was there when you came in. And so many, leaders would come in, sales leaders, and say, oh, these people have been here forever and we need new blood. And they don't even give this talent that had actually invested a lot of time and have so much knowledge, the opportunity to get on the bus. And there are ones who are going to get on the bus easily. There are going to be ones who should be on the bus but might need more coaching or empathy about the change. And then there are going to be the ones who weren't there anyway, shouldn't have been there anyway, and you don't want them on the bus. Yeah. So with that, what were some more challenging issues? I mean, we talked about all the positive things and everything you tried to do, but obviously it all wasn't, roses. With regard to the talent shift, with all of the change you're talking about, and even with the mindfulness that you approached it with, what were some of the harder things you've had to deal with?
Yeah, I think first that as a theme is that transformation isn't easy, and it's not easy when you're going at it really fast. Like we're at rapid acceleration right now, and it's uncomfortable for people. And for me, I thrive in gray areas. Like I think of like change as opportunity for growth, right? Whether it's for myself or the company, whatever. And I share that all the time with people, but not everyone sees it like I do. So for me personally, I have to always take that step back and recognize that not everyone is on the same page or thinks the same way about change and transformation that I do. So meeting our teams like where they are and bringing them along on the journey. Because like you said, like I think there was a lot of people here that were like hesitating, like they'd either been told, oh, we're going to do this great thing and it never transpired. So like they're just hesitating. This is their career. I mean, this is where they spent a majority of their life. We also had a ton of people that were just so excited and they were just like in the front seat of the bus, right? But you know, when I think about it, we had a lot of change coming at once. It wasn't even just a sales organization, right? So you're like, okay, I'm in a new job. I sell all things now. What are these things? I don't even know what they are, right? Because I only know EDA. I don't know the other 5 products that sit there on the shelf, right? So how do I learn that? At the same time, because we'd made acquisitions, we had 4 CRMs going into one. So they had to, and it was a new one. It wasn't even one of the 4 we had. So we had so much change coming at a group of people in a short period of time, and we still have change going on that, you know, sometimes you have to take the step back and kind of like protect your team. Like, it's okay. Like, we've got to take these off in bite sizes and we're going to do it together. And you know what? We're going to make mistakes. I'm going to make mistakes every day. I don't have a playbook with all the answers, right? But failure is okay because you're going to fail fast. You're going to pivot and try something different, right? No one's getting fired over this. As long as you're leaning in and you're receptive and you're really trying, like that's, I think, the message that was so critical for us that I think really calmed people and got people to come along with us on this really, you know, amazing journey. And we're still on it. But I do think that you have to be very mindful of the rate at which everything is changing and not just what's changing under your control. So I knew that, you know, we never had a sales ops organization until about a year ago, a true, you know, what I would say revenue ops, sales ops organization. So we built out that functionality and I kept telling people like, we deserve better than this. This is what we need. You know, sales leaders, you should be getting information out of our CRM. We should be pushing it to you, not you pulling it out of the systems yourself and trying to lead through that. And so when you start to build up the functions and you actually show them the wins that we're doing together, you get people more receptive to the journey that you're on. But again, it's being mindful as a leader of everything that's happening around you, being protective of your team, right? Because they can only take on so much at one time, and really prioritizing the most important things that are going to impact revenue. That I think has been successful for us, but it's also been the hardest because there have been a couple periods of time where we have a lot coming at them at once and all of it's really important. And so, you know, we're going to miss something and we know that, right? So I do think like it's not all successes, but it's recognizing when it is too much and kind of pumping the brakes for a moment just to give them some time to start to really digest everything around them.
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of investment in people, so which is great, and understanding that you got to build capabilities as you go, but you may hit a roadblock, have to kind of recalibrate and get back on track. I'm going to shift a little bit now, actually, because you brought something interesting up, which is the data and technology infrastructure you have to support the team. Because from transforming from a brand-based solution selling environment to now you are a one company solution environment, and you've been making acquisitions. You've what sales tech stack have you converged around? You mentioned having to consolidate 4 CRMs into one. You mentioned earlier that you want to make sure they're only using 1 to 3-ish tools to help them sell. And what new data have you had to provide to your teams to empower them in the sales environment that you didn't have to use before?
Yeah, so we, from a tech stack perspective, when I think about marketing and that journey into our sales development reps, we are leveraging HubSpot, which then we connect into a Salesforce environment.
Okay.
So those are the 2 primary tools. The third tool, which is critical for our post-sale support team, is Gainsight. So we right now have 3 predominantly, like I'd say, important tools that we're leveraging. I, believe that, and I can talk about the legacy business that was historically Randall Riley and not the acquisitions. Our CRMs were used for order entry more than they were for what you'd use a true CRM for. And so, CRMs are typically used to understand, your pipeline, your opportunities, you can forecast through them, like, all the typical things that you would do. So we're on that journey now to say, look, it's really important to get your opportunities in early on so that we can understand which products are growing and which are not, so we can actually look at trends there. Do we have a problem well before the problem occurs? That was a a learning curve, right, for our team. So that's just, understanding why data is so important in the CRM. Um, we think about assigning out, quotas and stack rankings. And not that it's, but it's showing like, how are you doing as an individual? And even when they're not maybe performing where they should be, why are they not? And coaching and developing to that. So you're investing in your people. So, historically, I don't think a lot of that data was readily available. And it's things that, with us standing up this true, sales ops organization, we're able to provide insight not only to the sales leaders but actually to the individual to help make their jobs easier, which is so critical. So historically, they would have to log into multiple tools, homegrown systems to truly understand contract start, contract end dates. Did they make amendments throughout the year, and then piece that together before they walked into a renewal conversation. And there's still pockets where that's happening today, and we're doing better, but that takes a lot of time. And so then it takes away from them actually doing what we need them to do, which is being in front of their clients, driving value and finding new opportunities for us. And so we're just every day trying to minimize that workload and really trying to create an environment where they have like a one-stop shop, and they go in, they log in, they can find everything that they want, and then their day can be prioritized based on, what's the most important from what they think that they're going to close sooner and renewals that they have coming up in the next quarter or two.
So your marketing is HubSpot, your sales is HubSpot. Your marketing is HubSpot, your sales is Salesforce, and what I would call your customer success is Gainsight, and they're all integrated and connected together. And you are allowing, you're using data to democratize and make real time at a push of a button insights that will either tell the salesperson where they stand in terms of their performance. So keep them not only updated, but motivated, let's say. But it also gives them, they're going to focus on what they're hired to focus on, which is selling, instead of putting together reports that their customers need.
Yeah.
Excellent. And then, um, did you have to spend a lot of investment and time training salespeople to become data driven, or like just that, right? Like even you spent that, you were investing in these tools, you're investing in them looking at it and using it, but was there training required to actually say, hey, we did all of this, now we have to see that you're using it, we're going to train you, and we're actually going to measure that you're using it?
Yeah, I think there's a lot there. So our sellers typically understood the data and the product that they were most comfortable in. I'd say in some instances they're experts in that data. I think what was different is to start to ask the question of, what do you do with that data? Where does it go? And because historically we didn't really have any offerings around that. Like in some of the products we didn't have APIs, so it wasn't like they could help them make it easier to consume the data. If they said, hey, I have a challenge, I actually take this data and I put it over here and it's really hard for me. We didn't have a response to that, 2+ years ago. And so now we're sitting in these conversations, myself, my sales leaders, and others, and we're saying, ask these hard questions, because it informs us of what we're building today and what we're going to build in the future. And so we have done a lot around, it's not just about the actual data that sits in the product, it's also about the use cases that our customers are using this to solve business challenges. And so that's where we spend a majority of our time. And then we think about it like agnostic to an industry, right? So I don't want to just go in and think about the ag industry. I want to think about all industries. So we have customers that span all industries. Historically, we'd go in and say, hey, I can solve your agricultural needs with this product, or ag and construction needs with this product. Well, if I'm a financial institution or maybe a tire manufacturer, I care about all the industries that we serve, right? Because tires go on a lot of the stuff. They go on trucks, they go on, ag equipment, construction equipment. And so by really helping our sellers take a step back and say, like, look, let's not just focus on the data and the product, but focus on all the data that we have, you can really influence your customers in understanding market trends or product placement, or maybe the next product development that they do, because we have data that goes across many industries. So let's not just wear one industry hat, one product hat when we walk in. And so that's the journey that we're on, and we're continuing to transform in. But a lot of our sellers are doing a fantastic job at this, which again is we're getting more upsell and we're getting cross-sell into these other products that we haven't had historically.
Well, I honestly, I could talk for another hour with you at least on all of this. We're unfortunately out of time. I'm super excited to have you dive into your use case at Revved Up. So everybody, Tina will be at Revved Up with Matt. It's going to be a fabulous event all about this very critical topic of revenue and growth, especially in an environment where business transformation is taking place. It takes place the 25th through the 27th in Sarasota. If you'd like more information, just go to h2klabs.com/revved up. With that, Tina, I'd like to just close out with, two rapid fire questions for you. Um, One is you're on a deserted island for 6 months. You have everything to survive: food, water, housing, medical supplies, and you can bring two things with you. What are they?
I might regret my answer, but I would bring my family. I think that would be really cool, possible. I mean, today was a great morning at a school drop-off, so they'll come along. And maybe if there was a potential, one of the things we love doing as a family is playing games. So if there's a device that had an endless supply of games, I think we would be very happy on a deserted island for 6 months.
That sounds like a fun 6 months. So, and I guess my last one, we ask this of every single podcast guest, what is the best book you've ever read? And it could be fiction, it could be business.
Yeah, so recently the head of my son's school recommended a book, Never Enough by Jennifer Wallace. And so I read it from an educational perspective for my son. Like, what's going on in the environment today that's, we as parents, are we pushing our kids to do more than what they have had in the past, and what impact does that have on them? But what was really interesting, as I was reading it, it's not just the importance of our children and what they're going on, like what's going on with them today for like in this society with the pressures that they're feeling, but it was also like the importance of prioritizing, mental well-being, right? And that was really interesting to me. And it talked about how in our own professions, we should shift from, these in the professional environments to more of like personal value fulfillment, because right now everyone is out there pursuing perfection. And it really does, you don't have to be perfect, right? It should be more of a fulfilling perspective as we grow. And so when I thought about it for my son and some of the pressures that I know my husband and I place on him and the school places on him, I also think that there's a lot in our professional environments that we do as well, that we push our people to the max. So I thought it was a really good read.
Oh, I would love to read that book because it's actually a topic I'm pretty passionate about, and you'll see someone we're bringing it Revved Up. By the way, his name is Blair LaCourte, and he is going to talk all about this and how profound the need to shift in this direction has become. Like COVID kind of kicked it off, but anyway, it's going to be a fascinating topic about the importance of this balance part, if you want to have a successful company. So, well, listen, Tina, thank you for joining us. We're really excited, as I said, to continue our conversation with you. And for the audience, you can find Tina on LinkedIn, and we'll also have her LinkedIn URL in the show notes. Thanks so much, Tina.
Thank you.
I'm excited to announce a new solution from H2K Labs, Revved Up. Revved Up is an invitation-only gathering and a brain trust for CEOs and their revenue-critical C-suite teams leading multi-sided businesses such as media, events, data and insights, marketplaces, and professional networks. I launched Revved Up for a few reasons. The first one is I'm extremely passionate about empowering our industry to write the rules versus ceding business value to tech platforms. And with AI no longer an on-the-horizon situation, it's here to stay. And with threats abounding, it's time for us to turn those threats into opportunities and to establish the rules of the game versus being told what to do. The second reason is there's clearly a gap in the market for events as an industry, and I want to fill that gap. We need new faces in the room, we need future-forward serious discussions, and we need cross-industry and cross-functional convergence. And most importantly, we need to take this discussion from 50,000 feet down to 10 and 5,000 feet. It's time for the conversation about data and its role in driving significant and sustainable enterprise value to take center stage. This discussion should leave you neither confused nor bored, but instead equip you and your teams with actionable strategies and playbooks to implement back at the office. It's about making existing revenue streams better, improving profitability, launching new revenue streams, and creating defensible competitive advantage. It's about CEOs helping CEOs learn how to navigate this increasingly complex race course. According to Gartner, 86% of CEOs believe AI will maintain or grow company revenues and enterprise value over the next 3 years, yet they do not know where to strategically focus their efforts. I hear this all the time when we talk to clients. That's where we come in. At Revved Up, we'll dive into how to fuel enterprise value, as well as to create sustainable competitive barriers to entry. Revved Up for CEOs and C-suite leaders takes place February 25th through the 27th in Sarasota, Florida. Please visit h2klabs.com/revvedup to learn more, and that's 2 V's.